Lead us, O Lord, in your truth. Make us to know your ways. Teach us your paths. Amen. Be seated, please. It's the first Sunday of Advent. From here on until this time next year, Luke is going to be our guide. And today, just about unlike any other Sunday, focuses on the second coming of Christ. One of the most difficult passages to deal with. When I was a priest in St. Paul's in Newburyport, I always tried to get someone else to preach on this Sunday. And doggone it, it was done to me, you know. I mean, here, I don't understand. You know, sometime back in the spring, a member of this parish said to me, "Make your sermons short. The sermons are too long." Okay. So I'm going to, the sermon today is about this. Wake up. And seek the heart. Is that simple enough? I'm not going to say who this person was. They know. All right. So you've heard the best of it already. And you could tune out if you want to, but you might listen because at least there are some things that you could learn. There's things that I have learned as I've tried to put this together and make sense of it, how it relates not only to Jesus in his world, but to us in our world today, wherein what Jesus describes about his day, heaven and earth, coming to an end. Those words could reasonably be used about our time right now, could they not? With so many crazy things going on, so much falling apart. In 1919, 100 years ago, when his wife was dying of influenza, William Butler Yeats wrote his apocryphal poem, The Second Coming. And the three opening lines really sum up where we are today, where Jesus was in his day. Listen to these words of Yeats' poem. Turning and turning in the wideness of the gyre, the falcon can no longer hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. These words seem to me to sum up the crisis that Jesus speaks about in today's gospel. But they also sum up the loss of center, which we ourselves and many around us also experience today as we pass through this time of crisis. The falcon can no longer hear the falconer. The falcon may be us, and the falconer, the one we most need to hear. Things falling apart. the center, who is God, no longer holds. Physically and emotionally, we've lost our mooring in this world over the past 2 years, maybe longer. The division in our nation, the violence perpetrated in our society, people in so many ways in deep pain, angry, afraid. Many people fleeing from their homes for their lives to find another place to live more fully. Patterns of life that we had enjoyed, depended on, are being torn apart. The profound neediness of people convulses all around us. The crutches we have leaned on in the past, our sacred values, our idea of God, no longer seem to work for many. A good Episcopalian friend of mine who owns a studio in the building where I have my studio, came to me not long ago, and he said, where is God in all this mess? He said, I am reluctant to believe in God. And that's understandable, isn't it? If there is a God, where is God in all of the chaos that is going on in our society? The chaos of our world today does feel like an end time, just as it felt like an end time for Jesus, where heaven and earth were falling away. But rather than lamenting all that is passing away, Jesus urges us. Do you remember his words? Do you remember his urging? Stand up. Raise your heads up high. Listen deeply to what is happening. Because in all of this messiness, God is here. But it's a mystery, isn't it? And how do we know that God is near? How do we feel it, touch it? I don't have an answer to that, really. I know what we need to do. The Spanish poet Antonio Machado underlines what we need to do in our quest to find God again in the messiness of life. This is what he says. I love Jesus, who said to us, heaven and earth will pass away. When heaven and earth have passed away, my word will still remain. What was your word, Jesus? Love? Forgiveness? Affection? No, all your words were one word. Wake up. Wake up to the new life that is coming out of the darkness of today. Wake up! Be startled awake. Jesus said these words, this one word of his in the last line of the text today. Now is not a time to be nodding off in despair or sleeping. That's what I like to do. It's not a time to live life on cruise control. Any takers here? It's not a day to want anything to return to normal, because that ain't going to happen. No. As tough as it may be, waking up and looking deeply at what is going on right now, opening our spiritual eyes, talking among ourselves, how right now in all of this messiness, God is working God's purpose out, as the old hymn says. Do you remember that hymn? God is working his purpose on. Dum, 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 dum. I used to love to sing that hymn. But today, to sing that hymn means so much more. It requires courage and clarity and the willingness to step into the mystery of life as it's happening right now. I think we're meant to listen deeply and corporately to all that is going on, talking to one another and trying to figure out together what this redemptive new life is going to be, what God is calling us to do, to be. And then letting what we discover reshape the church that we are in. Reshape what we do here on Sunday mornings. Reshape how we minister. So that's the big picture. Waking up to the world in order that we can live life more fully. But we also need to wake up to other people, to listen and learn from them how God is stirring in their lives now. How is God involved in your life? And could you talk about that to the person sitting next to you? Has anyone in this church ever asked you to talk about how God is stirring your life? The theologian Freddie Buechner said that for a respite he went to Wheaton College in Illinois, and he was in the cafeteria. He was eating lunch, and there were a couple fellows there from the seminary. And he said, he's a Presbyterian minister, and he said, all of a sudden, one of these guys said to the other guy, so what's God doing in your life today? And Buechner says, that guy said it as if it was like, pass the butter, will you? It was that important to talk among themselves, to talk among ourselves about God, how God is stirring us. We come in, we go out. Do we ever talk about how God is stirring in our lives? So the other thing we need to wake up to is that stirring in other people. And if we listen below the words that other people speak, if we listen below those people that turn away, if we listen to those people who are angry with us, then we can also begin to understand who God is in our midst today and how we need to live with them. When I was in the 5th grade, I was in Sunday school in Mrs. Divalbiss's class. She was a saint. And she said, one thing I've never forgotten, she said, when you hear a lesson, there are 2 things that you need to remember. What the lesson is, what the learning is, and what the action is that follows from it. What the lesson is, and what the action is. The lesson today is that God is in our midst in spite of all the messiness and inviting us to listen to His word. The action is wake up and seek the heart of God in the world and in other people.